United Kingdom, Canada and Australia have officially announced their recognition of the State of Palestine. Gazans hail UK, Australia and Canada's recognition of Palestinian statehood as boost for peace efforts. And Lebanese President Aoun condemns Israeli drone strike in Bint Jbeil, calls it a new massacre. These were the headlines, the news in detail. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has returned the draft criminal procedure law to the House of Representatives for reconsideration, citing concerns over several articles. The objections focus on governance, clarity, and practical implementation, particularly in ensuring stronger protection for defendants, reducing reliance on pre-trial detention, and eliminating the ambiguous language that could complicate enforcement. The President also stressed the need to give relevant ministries and institutions adequate time to prepare for the law's new mechanisms. While commending the House for its work on the bill, Sisi acknowledged its progressive additions, including travel bans for defendants, compensation for wrongful pre-trial detention, remote trials via digital platforms, and improved witness protection and international legal cooperation. And now we move to Gaza. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said Britain's recognition of the State of Palestine aims to keep alive the possibility of peace and a two-state solution, envisioning a secure Israel alongside a viable Palestinian state. Starmer emphasized that this move is not a concession to Hamas, which he said must have no future role in government or security, and announced plans to sanction more Hamas figures soon. He condemned the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, calling the Israeli government's bombardment and the resulting devastation utterly intolerable, highlighting the escalation of the conflict and accelerated settlement building in the West Bank. Starmer warned that while the hope for peace is fading, we can't let the light go out.
Show the hostages suffering and emaciated. Hamas even refused.
Canadian Prime Minister Qnews has announced that Canada officially recognizes the State of Palestine, citing Israel's ongoing settlement expansion in the West Bank and its deadly assault on Gaza as obstacles to Palestinian statehood. He condemned these actions as violations of international law and emphasized that the current Israeli government openly rejects the creation of a Palestinian state. Qnews said Canada's recognition is part of a coordinated global effort to uphold the two-state solution and promote peace grounded in principles of self-determination and human rights. He stressed that while recognition is not a cure-all, it reflects Canada's long-standing commitment to justice and peace in the region. Australia formally recognized the independent state of Palestine on September 21st, joining Canada and the UK in a coordinated international effort to revive the two-state solution. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese affirmed Australia's support for Palestine's legitimate aspirations and emphasized the need for a ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages from the October 2023 attacks. Benes highlighted the Palestinian Authority's commitment to recognize Israel, hold democratic elections, and implement reforms, stressing that Hamas must have no role in Palestine's future. Australia signaled that further steps, including diplomatic ties and embassies, will depend on progress. The Prime Minister called on the Arab League and the US to lead peace initiatives, with Australia pledging continued cooperation to achieve lasting peace and security for both Israelis and Palestinians. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry has praised the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia for their recent recognition of Palestinian statehood, calling the move courageous and consistent with international law. In a statement, the ministry said the recognitions affirm the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people and support the preservation of the two-state solution amid what it described as ongoing crimes of extermination, starvation, displacement, and annexation by Israeli occupation forces. The ministry also expressed hope for stronger ties with the three countries and urged others, particularly the United States, to follow suit and recognize Palestine. Gazans have welcomed the recent recognition of Palestinians, or rather Palestinian statehood, by the UK, Australia, and Canada. Residents see the move as a significant step towards international support for Palestinian rights and a two-state solution. The recognitions come amid ongoing conflict and calls for renewed peace efforts in the region. The Israeli occupation military has confirmed that its 36th Armored Division has entered Gaza City as part of the ongoing ground offensive. Previously stationed in Qnews, the division was withdrawn earlier this month and spent 2 weeks preparing for renewed combat operations. The deployment marks an escalation in Israel's military campaign in the densely populated urban center. Right, and for more analysis, we now move to Hani Saif in our newsroom. To you, Hani.
Thank you, Mona. Ladies and gentlemen, we're joined from Ramallah by Mr. Ashraf Akka, the political analyst. Mr. Akka, welcome to Q News. What strategic or diplomatic goals might the UK, Canada, and Australia be pursuing by jointly recognizing the state of Palestine at this moment?
First of all, having the two-state solution as an international will that the international decisions has put in stone. And so this is a strike to the Israeli extremist objectives that have been trying to put obstacles in the way of reaching a two-state solution. And there is some believe that in the Western countries that a two-state solution is the only way to reach a lasting peace and stability, and add to that sending a real and serious political message for the need to start condemning Netanyahu and his actions and the extremist government that because he has obstacles in the way of reaching any peaceful outcome. And so, yeah, the Palestinians' rights aren't just isn't just a word. We need to reach these rights, and we need to stop Israel's actions and objectives from trying to widen the settlements and taking down the Palestinian governments and even other illegitimate objectives. And so, yes, we need a political stance, and these also we also need them to protect their legitimate rights from the extremist government, and also in addition that they will end the forcing them out of their land. This will end it. That and they don't comply to the 1976. And so we need, yes, to keep the Palestinian rights and reach a two-state solution through a logical outcome, so that the Palestinians and Israelis can coexist safely and in peace. And so, yes, safety and stability will not be reached unless we have legitimate rights for Palestinians and reach a sovereign state for the Palestinians. And we also need to settle according to the law 242 and 238. And so I think that these stances that keep condemning and exposing Israel and show that they do not comply to the international law, Geneva's agreement, and the humanitarian law.
Yes. Well, obviously everybody wants a two-state solution, and that's why there will be a summit dealing with this issue tomorrow. But do you think Canada, Britain and Australia might be wanting to ease down the uproar in their respective countries, or the public opinion, maybe have some sort of a bargaining chip or on a higher moral ground when dealing with countries such as the US?
I think that the USA today is actually some kind of, when it comes to the other countries, especially that most of the countries in the world and from the Security Council recognize Palestine, and so yes, if they try to counter this back, they will face condemnations and a unified stance from the other countries, and will actually hold Israel accountable and impose sanctions on them. And so that's why I think that today, when it comes to the Middle East case and the Palestinian statehood issue, are facing the USA. This is the truth. And so we saw that Trump's administration have worked on all, have used strategies to escalate the tension. And yeah, so I think that for the summit for the peace that was led by by Saudi Arabia, and the meeting tomorrow led by Saudi Arabia and France, will keep the legitimate rights of the Palestinians. And throughout the previous years, I think that Israel's illegitimate and brutal actions ended and took over all the Palestinians' rights, and these aren't legitimate. And so they created chaos in the region, and so we cannot say that it will keep on going like this. And I think that what happened in the past hours will not put an end to will put an end to Israel's settlement plans, not only in Palestine but also in Syria and Lebanon. And if today the government with Netanyahu as the leader, they are discussing the sovereignty of Jordan with Trump. And so I think that the USA, if they attempt to make a big mistake like they did before with giving Netanyahu the green light to strike Qatar to target Hamas, they will face huge condemnation and will have consequences for their actions. And I think that the USA will also face international condemnation and will be excluded and hated just like Israel. And so we need to look at the importance of these recognitions, especially now when Israel and the USA are trying to create more chaos and tension and instability in the Middle East with the genocide that's going on in Gaza, the settlements, and even taking over the West Bank, breaches of the with the breaches that happen and the atrocities that happen in
Yes.
East Jerusalem. And so yes, we are facing this open war basically with the legitimate rights and facing the USA support. And I think that the countries now fully understand that they need to speak up and to face
Well,
face
pardon, but what about Israel? Do you think that these recognitions could influence internal Israeli politics, especially like with figures like Yair Lapid and Benny Gantz opposing the move?
I think that domestically and with the domestic politics, I think that they that this tsunami that's happening and the chaos, I think that they are blaming it all on Netanyahu, and that he and they're saying that he failed in the Gaza Strip and failed to reach his objectives, and he also failed in other wars, especially that he claimed that he has reached a great objectives with ending Hezbollah and ending the war with Syria and other claims. And so, yeah, I think that Netanyahu's file today is closer to being discussed in international courts. Netanyahu and all the extremist leaders, and they don't have as domestic stability right now. Even in
Yes.
Israel, they keep reaffirming the importance of holding Netanyahu accountable and to see how Israel reached this point of being internationally condemned. And I think
Yes.
that this is what led us to a recognition of a Palestinian statehood. And I think that there will be a domestic statement that we will see the effect of in the upcoming weeks and months. And I think Netanyahu is in actual trouble, and the whole extremist government basically. And I think that the domestic politics in Israel will be unstable. And if we look at Israel's reaction to these statements, we will see how troubled and how unstable the Israeli leaders are living right now, and how the domestic politics are unstable either now.
Yes, and I'm sure we will be seeing a lot of reaction over the next few days as well. From Ramallah, that was Mr. Ashraf Akka, the political analyst. Mr. Akka, thank you very much for joining us here on Q News. Mona, now back to you in the studio.
Well, thank you so much, Henny, for the analysis. And back to our bulletin, Yair Lapid, the Israeli opposition leader, said that the tripartite recognition of a Palestinian state is a political disaster for Israel, according to Al Qahira News channel. He added that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government is bringing upon Israel the most dangerous political crisis. Israeli opposition leader Benny Gantz has strongly criticized the recent decisions by the UK, Canada and Australia to recognize Palestinian statehood, warning the move could embolden Hamas and derail progress on a Daytoni deal. He called on Western leaders to apply maximum pressure on Hamas to relinquish control and release captives before considering diplomatic recognition. Their remarks come as international momentum for Palestinian statehood builds, with over 75% of UN member states having already granted recognition. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas welcomed the announcement by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer recognizing the independent and sovereign state of Palestine. He stressed that Britain's recognition of Palestine represents an important and necessary step towards achieving lasting peace. He added that the recognition reflects the Palestinian people's right to self-determination and independence. Britain's Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy has stressed that his government's decision to recognize a Palestinian state is a step in support of a just cause. Lamy acknowledged that the move would not bring immediate change on the ground, but argued it was time to stand up for the two states, referencing the long-sought vision of a two-state solution. The decision follows Prime Minister Keir Starmer's July declaration that the UK would recognize Palestine unless Israel agreed to a ceasefire, with Hamas allowed more humanitarian aid into Gaza, halted West Bank annexation plans, and committed to peace negotiations. Lamy said those conditions had not been met, pointing to a broken ceasefire and Israel's continued settlement expansion.
Or do we say, when we see the E1 development, the expansion plans, the Israeli government?
Thousands of displaced Palestinians continued to move south along Gaza's coastal road following Israeli military orders to evacuate Gaza City. The evacuation comes as Israel ramps up its demolition campaign, targeting high-rise buildings and launching a ground assault in the city's eastern suburbs. Israeli forces have intensified strikes on the Sheikh Radwan and Tell al-Hawa neighborhoods, key positions from which they are expected to advance into the densely populated central and western areas of Gaza City, where many civilians are now sheltered. Over 650,000 civilians remain in Gaza City amid heavy Israeli bombardment and a deepening humanitarian crisis as food, water, and medical supplies run out. Medical staff at hospitals like Al-Shifa have refused to leave, vowing to treat the wounded despite the danger. Many residents displaced multiple times have returned to the city, saying the south offers no real safety. Churches and mosques continue to shelter families even as aid routes collapse. The UN says over 1 million people have been displaced since March, with 200,000 moving south in the past month alone. Thousands of Israelis gathered in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv to demand an end to the war in Gaza and the return of detainees held by Hamas. Protesters waved flags, chanted, and carried banners with photos of the detainees as Israel continues its intense military operations in Gaza City. Israeli occupation forces have been targeting key areas in Gaza City's eastern suburbs, preparing to advance into densely populated central and western neighborhoods. Pope Leo XIV has denounced the forced exile of Palestinians as Israel ramped up its military demolition campaign in Gaza City. The Pope said during his Angelus prayer at the St. Peter's Square that a future cannot be built on violence, forced exile, or revenge. The pontiff's comments come amid growing global pressure over Israel's actions in Gaza, where its July strike on the territory-only Catholic Church marked a turning point in Leo's vocal advocacy for peace. The Pope's remarks coincide with expectations that 10 nations, including the UK, will formally recognize an independent Palestinian state ahead of the UN General Assembly.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين. وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has condemned an Israeli drone strike that killed 5 people, including 3 children, in the southern city of Bint Jbeil, calling it a new massacre. Speaking from New York during the UN General Assembly, Aoun accused Israel of ongoing violations of international resolutions, particularly the November 27, 2024 ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah. There can be no peace over the blood of our children, he stated. An Israeli drone strike on the southern Lebanese city of Bint Jbeil has killed 5 people, including 3 children. According to Lebanon's health ministry, 2 others were wounded in the attack. Despite a ceasefire with Hezbollah signed in November 2024, Israel has continued to carry out strikes in southern Lebanon. The border region has seen near daily exchanges of fire since the start of Israel's war on Gaza in October 2023. Israel's bombing campaign in Lebanon has killed over 3,000 people and displaced nearly 1 million civilians. Shortly after midnight, an Israeli force carried out an incursion into the town of Rimayah in southern Lebanon. According to Lebanese media, the Israeli forces detonated a house before withdrawing at dawn. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that contacts with Syria are ongoing, with some progress made, though significant gaps remain. Last week, Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara said negotiations on a security pact with Israel could yield results in the coming days. Iran Top Security Council has announced it will effectively suspend cooperation with the UN nuclear watchdog following the UN Security Council's decision not to extend sanctions relief. The Supreme National Security Council criticized France, Britain and Germany for what it called ill-considered actions on Iran's nuclear program and directed the Foreign Ministry to safeguard national interests. The decision follows last month's triggering of the JCPOA snapback sanctions mechanism by the E3, with sanctions expected to return later this month. Iran vowed to overcome the challenges and rejected Western pressure, highlighting past US attacks on its nuclear facilities and its capability to rebuild and advance them. One person was killed and several others injured after multiple shots were fired at the Sky Meadow Country Club in Nashua, New Hampshire. Authorities detained a person of interest at the scene. Nashua police confirmed there was only one shooter, correcting earlier reports of 2 suspects. Officials say there is no further danger to the public. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called on citizens to prioritize buying locally made products, promoting a self-reliance campaign known as Swadeshi. This appeal comes as trade relations with the United States worsen following a 50% US tariff on Indian imports. Modi urged shopkeepers to stock Indian-made goods, emphasizing that high-quality domestic products can boost the nation's economic growth and pride. Supporters have also launched boycotts of popular American brands like McDonald's, Pepsi and Apple, as India's vast market remains a key target for US companies. Berlin welcomed dogs and their owners to a special dog-only swimming event on Sunday, marking the city's first ever occasion of its kind. Pets of all sizes and colors enjoyed splashing in a colorant-free outdoor pool, while humans cheered from the sidelines. Swimming was not permitted for people. Participants needed a valid EU pet passport and dog liability insurance to enter, with fees set at €2 per person and €4 per dog. Despite a mixed summer season with lower visitor number due to poor weather, the dog swim was a refreshing highlight at Berlin's outdoor pools close for the year. Paragliders donned in colors costumes, including a giant monkey on a skateboard, floated over the French Alps during the 52nd Coupe Car Festival in Saint-Hilaire-de-Touvet. The event, named after the mythical Qnews, featured dozens of pilots in creative outfits, from octopuses to Muppet Show's characters. Despite windy conditions delaying some flights, all pilots soared safely over the Alpine Valley. Notably, Julie Hovet flew with a broken leg in a two-seater glider, while Florida retiree Brad Whitmore spent 200 hours and over 2,000 euros crafting his frog costume. The six-day festival combines flying events, costume contests, and aerial displays to celebrate the season's end. That ends our news bulletin for the hour. Here is a quick recap of the headlines. United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia have officially announced the recognition of the State of Palestine. Gaza's hail UK, Australia, and Canada's recognition of Palestinian statehood as boost for peace efforts. And Lebanese President Aoun condemns the Israeli drone strike in Bint Jbeil, calls it a new massacre. Well, that brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Many thanks for watching and good night.